everyone, and welcome to the Rankings Report. No, your eyes don't deceive you. We've got a new look, but we're still here to talk about the biggest stories from the latest batch of official UFC rankings. Coming up, we've got some rankings breakthroughs, our UFC 217 preview, and a look at one fighter's spot among all-time greats. Plus, we rank the best trash talkers in UFC history.
So the rankings, right? How? Well, each week a panel of highly respected journalists rank the top UFC fighters by weight class and pound for pound, and the results are revealed Wednesday on UFC Tonight.
On this episode, we'll be looking at the rankings out October 25th, but you can see the latest list anytime at UFC.com/rankings. So the rankings got a shot of new talent this weekend from Darren Till, who debuted at number 8 in the welterweight division after his crushing knockout over Cowboy Cerrone. This was a matchup that featured an unranked fighter against Cowboy, who at the time was ranked number 6. So Forrest, is this just the beginning for Darren Till?
No, it's a fluke. Cowboy had an off night. No, I'm kidding. So Darren Till has been hyped for a while. He's a guy that just has an amazing talent and potential, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Well, you know, as soon as he beat Cowboy in such an impressive fashion, he made it look easy. He immediately had words with another welterweight, that being Mike Perry, who was just outside the octagon. Perry is, however...
He did not consult the rankings before he called Perry out.
No, because Perry is not ranked anymore. He was right on the edge at number 15 last week. Perry is matched up with Santiago Ponzinibbio for December on UFC on Fox 26. So then that takes him out of the equation. Who do you believe Darren Till should face next?
Well, he actually talked a little bit about fighting Stephen Thompson, which I think is a good fight. Maybe he fights the winner of Thompson-Masvidal, which are two guys that are definitely top 5 welterweights given. So if I was Till, that's a fight I would look for.
Because they are also ranked ahead of him.
So you want to get up in the rankings. I think that's the way it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way.
As Darren Till debuts at number 8, he actually bumped Mike Perry right off of the top 15, where he was for the past few weeks.
Mike Perry should have been calling Till out for that.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Right. The now unranked Perry actually has a fight. He's taking on number 10, Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Ponzinibbio is a carbon copy of Mike Perry. Two guys that punch hard and punch fast. And if that's not an exciting fight, then I'll just give up.
Yeah, that one's going to be amazing in December. Let's take a look at it, though, because we've got Mike Perry, who is unranked right now. He's got a ton of hype behind him, though. A lot of people know his name. He gets great spots on big cards. But there's Santiago, ranked number 10 at welterweight. So who has more to lose in this matchup?
So I actually think it's Perry, because Perry has lost a couple of fights. Even when he's had people in the trouble round, you look trouble in the first round, you look at Alan Jouban came back and kind of handled him in that third round. So I think, you know, this is really where the hype and the rankings kind of, for him, need to connect. Otherwise, he's going to have trouble making it on the big card.
Let's talk about a bantamweight that has real potential to make waves at 135, and that's Dana White looking for a fight product, Matt Lopez. After dropping his UFC debut, he has won 2 in a row and earned himself a number 14 ranking. He's facing the biggest challenge of his career to date in November 11th when he takes on the number 4 ranked Rafael Assunção. Forrest, I know you've seen Matt train. What about him makes him seem special to you?
So he's another guy with a lot of hype. You know, it wasn't just for looking for a fight. It was the finishes he had on people in smaller organizations. And having seen him work out, he still has not shown how good he is in the octagon in his 3 fights. So unfortunately, as talented as he is, Assunção is just such a tough guy to fight. He's a tough guy to attack. Anything you do to attack him, he makes you pay for. So it's a really tough fight for Matt.
Crafty veteran versus young prospect. 14 versus 4 makes this fun for the rankings, because if Matt Lopez does defeat Rafael Assunção, you've got to imagine he's going to shoot very close to that top 5.
7-8.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of big bantamweight fights coming along. We've got big implications in Sao Paulo when number 5 John Lineker takes on unranked Chito Vera. That's October 28th. Should Chito Vera get this done against John Lineker, that's going to make waves at 135. How do you believe he can do it?
Well, so if you look, to me, TJ Dillashaw had the game plan. He kept Lineker off balance with takedowns, threatening the takedowns, landing shots, and moving. You do not want to stand in front of Lineker and just bang it out, because he's going to knock you out. He's got a great chin and great power. So there's definitely, he's a guy that's beatable. And then you just send him lots of cakes. So it's a tough time making that weight.
Do you believe he's the maybe second biggest puncher in the division behind Cody Garbrandt?
He is, and unfortunately in UFC there's not a lot of prizes for being the second best at something. But
There's not, but it makes him dangerous every second of that fight.
And a potentially very exciting opponent for Garbrandt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from exciting prospects and possible future champs to current stars, let's switch gears to UFC 217, which occurs November 4th at Madison Square Garden, where some of the biggest names in the organization will take to the octagon, including 3 champions looking to defend their belts against hungry challengers.
2 legends will meet in the octagon at MSG.
I want my belt! TJ Dillashaw, come try me. No one is taking this belt from me.
2 of the best strawweights in the world.
3 title fights. Get me to New York.
This is how legends are made.
One of the biggest stories right now, probably of the year, is the return of George St-Pierre at UFC 217. Not only is this 9-time defending champ coming back to the octagon after almost 4 years away, but he's doing so in a new weight class, which could send the rankings into a tailspin. You know, Forrest, if you look at it on paper, it's an unranked middleweight versus the middleweight champion. But this is no average unranked fighter. This is George St-Pierre. How are you expecting him to perform at 185?
Well, so here's the thing. He hasn't had to make weight in 4 years, so he's probably gotten a little bigger. He probably hasn't had to be as disciplined with his diet. He's been doing movie stuff where in Hollywood, you just want to be bigger. You don't really care about the weight. So he's probably, and he was always a big 170-pounder, so he's probably naturally moved up to that weight. So I think physically, I think they're going to be a little closer than you think. The reach is actually pretty similar. Bisping is a little taller, but I think it's going to be a closer fight than you think physically.
If Michael Bisping defeats George St-Pierre, does this make him shoot up those pound-for-pound rankings? Because at that point, then, he's beaten a lot of legends. Anderson Silva, Dan Henderson, and then you add George St-Pierre to the list?
Well, that's weird. I don't know. I'm glad other people do this because he's going to beat a 170-pounder if he wins, and at 185. So where does that really rank him? I don't know. That's why you have professionals.
If GSP wins, though, do you believe he stays at 185?
I think so. I don't know that at his age, do you really want to bother making that weight? And I mean, I think, you know, for him, it's about matchups. He can find other people that he can beat at 185.
Yeah, well, that one is going to be so fun. Co-main event is between champ Cody Garbrandt and the number 2 ranked former champion, TJ Dillashaw. We know the story from friends to foes. They had the Ultimate Fighter. Now they're at Madison Square Garden. Was this the right matchup for the Bantamweight division?
It was, and you said how we've all been waiting. Well, we've been waiting for almost a year for Cody to come back. So TJ's been active. He's been fighting. He looks good. He's been training. So I'm interested to see what Cody is coming back. So it's a tough fight for Cody, I think. TJ moves a lot like him. However, you know, it's been a year off. We'll see. I'm worried. Because I'm nervous.
Yeah, it's a very busy bantamweight division right now because later in the year, the number 1 ranked Dominic Cruz, former champion again, is taking on number 3 Jimmy Rivera. Do you believe they'll all sort of face each other throughout their careers more than once?
You know, Jimmy Rivera is a guy that shot up the ranking. I think when he beat Uriah Faber, that was his kind of coming out party. However, you know, I think Cruz is going to be maybe too quick for him. So we'll see the speed against the power of Rivera. So it'll be a real interesting matchup.
Yeah, 135, one of the most talent-rich divisions in the UFC right now. But to round out the title fights at UFC 217 is JJ Champion versus Thug Rose, a matchup between, as Sean Shelby calls them, 2 savages at 115. Of course, let's get right to it. Rose Namajunas is ranked number 4 in the strawweight division. Is she the woman that will finally be able to take out Joanna Jędrzejczyk?
I don't know. It's hard to say because number 3, number 2, and number 1, they weren't. So it's tough for Rose because she has a very similar style to JJ, but she's a smaller version. So I think if there's really, you know, any clinching, I think Joanna will be the stronger of the 2. Although it does make for a very exciting fight because we have 2 crisp Muay Thai fighters.
Should Joanna win, or lose really, do you believe 125 is in her immediate future?
I do. I'd like that for her, yeah. I think that'd be more comfortable for her, and I think if she gets this defense, that sets her up perfectly to move up for some, you know, super fights.
That card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom, especially with those 3 titles on the line. But the champion of another division, flyweight, is now the UFC's top pound-for-pound fighter, Demetrious Johnson. He's our rankings report number crusher.
Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson! There can be no doubt Mighty Mouse
House is the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet Earth. His movement, his ability to adjust and improvise make him the best combat sports athlete there's ever been.
You can win the belt. It's easy to win the belt, but how many times can you defend it? Keep it defended and also evolve.
Since winning the flyweight title in 2012, Demetrious Johnson has been unbeatable, making his way onto and up the pound-for-pound list. And after that mind-blowing submission win at UFC 216, it feels like fans are finally catching up to what analysts have been saying. Mighty Mouse may well be the best athlete in the sport. First, Forrest, I want to ask you, do you believe that submission against Ray Borg was one of the best ever?
That's a move everybody's drilled and everybody's done, but you don't actually expect people to do it. And the way he did it, he actually had the wherewithal to look and see, oh, the fence is right here, I'll just scoot over here and do it. And if you think about the way he's finished his fights, he's finally made people say, hey, here's a tactical fighter that doesn't get in the firefights, but yet he's exciting because of his ability to game plan, because of the way he dominates his opponent.
Well, Demetrious is number one on the pound-for-pound list. He's number one, greatest of all time in a lot of people's minds. But for those who maybe aren't quite convinced yet, what do you think he needs to do to cement that legacy?
So, first of all, nothing. But I would like to see him, if he could, bait some people into fighting him at a catch weight of 130. I think a guy like TJ and Cody Garbrandt can both make that weight, and I think those are the fights that could really expose him to a larger audience.
Well, from the greatest ever to the fighters we think should be ranked in a whole different category, this month we're discussing the UFC's best trash talkers.
He's like a little gangster from the hood. He makes gun signs with the right hand and animal balloons with the left hand.
Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
You're just going to look to take me down, smother me, bore everybody to death, just like you do whenever you talk.
Hold on, and just for the record, I believe that's 1-0 to Bisping.
If the UFC 217 buildup has done anything, it's reminded us that Michael Bisping is one of the all-time best trash talkers in UFC history. So for this week's Real Talk Rankings, Forrest and I pick our top 3 trash talkers in the history of the UFC. Since we're going all over UFC, I'm going to start with Chael Sonnen, because Chael talked himself into fights that he necessarily would not have gotten due to ranking, skill set, or record. But he had them, we were excited about them, we looked forward to them, and they were fun.
He built the fight, and he got himself a fight for the light heavyweight title when he was a middleweight.
So let's go to my number 2, which is Michael Bisping. You know, the thing about Michael is he says he doesn't like to have beef with his opponents, but he always has beef with his opponents. And not only does he have smack talk with them, he gets guys like George St-Pierre, who never flinches at anything, riled up and physically involved in those face-offs. That's something that not a lot of people can do.
What's even more impressive about him is he builds the fight. He makes people care by talking trash. So if you look, he got his first title defense against number 12, Dan Henderson. Against number 12, what? He sold that fight off a 7-year grudge.
In just
the way
minutes.
Dan knocked him out. Sold the arena out in 6 minutes, and he made people care about the fight. And that's the other side of trash talking.
Yes, and finally, to round out my top 3 list, I'm going to go with the entire lightweight division. From Conor McGregor to Tony Ferguson, Kevin Lee, Justin Gaethje, Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier, Michael Johnson, and of course, Raging Al. The lightweights have some of the best trash talk in the game, and they're all in the same division, which makes those matchups even more fun. So lightweights, great work there.
They should definitely fight it out.
They should fight over it, oh yeah. Forrest, who's in yours?
So my rankings, I'm going to start with old school Chuck Liddell. So he's not known for being a big trash talker, but what Chuck did was he would actually talk to his opponent. He would convince his opponent that he was going to knock them out. So you look at the purposes of trash talk. Am I trying to sell a fight? Am I trying to hype myself? He was trying to intimidate his opponents, and it worked.
Yeah.
So all time, we're talking all time here?
Yeah.
Phil Baroni.
Yes.
Did he intimidate his opponents by what he was saying? No, because nobody knows what he was saying. But he intimidated them because they knew this guy was crazy and he was coming for a fight. The other thing Phil did was he fired himself up. He got himself excited. So again, he motivated himself through that trash talk, and people did care. They were like, oh, that guy's crazy, I gotta watch him.
Hey, talk to me, man. Relax, no one wants to hear what you gotta say. Come on out of retirement, chump. I'm the man! I'm the best ever!
Can you imagine the affirmations Phil Baroni says to himself in the morning every day to kind of pump himself up? They've got to be amazing.
Oh man, we should videotape that.
Well, you heard from us. Now we can't wait to hear from you. Send us your trash talk rankings using the hashtag Rankings Report on Twitter. We'll be back next time with the results of your votes in our trash talk poll and another episode of your new favorite show. Tune in to see what's new in the UFC rankings. For Forrest, Griffin, I'm Megan Olivi. We'll see you next time on the Rankings Report.